we bring in Albert Breer, Monday morning quarterback, lead strategist, lead content guy. All right, so you do this every year. You ask GMs, coordinators, quarterback coaches, all the guys that would know, give me your best 5, 10 quarterbacks. My takeaway was I didn't have any disagreement. And then you get to 10 and 11. It's Brock Purdy, 10, Dak, 11. And I'll make this argument and throw it at you, and you just fire back. That Brock Purdy, we don't want to admit this. Brock and Dak are the same thing. Non-traditional college powers, mid to late drafts, inherit an offensive coach, a big brand, and a fairly stacked offensive roster. Not the best arm, mobile enough, high character guys. The difference is one is wealthy, one is not. But the GMs that you talk to, they see Brock and Dak as the same kind of guy, one with more starts. Is that nuts?
No, and I think it's sort of an example, Colin, of how hard it is to get to the very top category. If you look at the top 3 names there, Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen, those have essentially been the top 3 over the last 3 years. It's a hard group to crack. Even Lamar Jackson, who was the MVP of the league, wasn't able to crack it coming off the 23 season. And just for full context here, there are 85 people voting. All of them are in the business of evaluating quarterbacks, whether it's on the scouting side or the coaching side. And I'm asking them to project where those quarterbacks are going to be at the end of the year. So, like Lamar, based on what he did last year and where people see him going forward, couldn't even crack that top 3. You see C.J. Stroud there at number 5. That stuck out to me as well. It's hard to get into that group, and I really think the difference is in the 2 groups. There's the quarterbacks you can win with and the quarterbacks you win because of. And I think those top 3 are in that category where you win because of them. I think Lamar's in there too now. And it's really hard to elevate to that upper echelon. And I, for better or worse, think a lot of people in the league say, okay, like if you put a really good situation around Dak, you can win with him. No question about it. But if you take things down a notch, you tear some pieces away from him, is it going to be the same result? Maybe not. Now, I would argue that Dak actually showed some of those traits, being able to be one of the win because of guys last year, and that once you get past CD Lamb, there wasn't a ton around him. He lost his offensive coordinator ahead of last year, so he did show some of those things. But I think you're right to say that Dak would be in that win with category rather than the win because of category, which I think is also where Brock Purdy is right now for NFL folks.
Have we gotten over our skis on the Bears? They're just a touchdown favorite at home over a bad Tennessee team that has a whole new staff. I was talking about this morning. I mean, you're kind of guessing if you're the Bears what Tennessee's going to do offensively. They've upgraded their weapons. I just think to myself, there's going to be this stuff builds to crescendos. There's going to be a big thud somewhere week 1 in the NFL, and I'm like, Chicago's had a lot of thuds over the last decade. Are we getting ahead of ourselves on the Bears?
Well, I think we're always sort of prisoners of the moment, and that we look at how last year ended, and the Bears were pretty good at the end of last year, better than they have been in a few years. And then you start to look at the roster, and you see some ascending players, and you plug Caleb in, and now it's like, okay, Caleb is this generational talent, once in every few years type of quarterback. And you give him Darnell Wright, who's a top 10 pick at tackle. You give him DJ Moore and Keenan Allen as veteran receivers. You draft Rome Odunze. You bring in DeAndre Swift to be at the center of the running game. And then you have a defense that was playing good towards the end of last year with a defensive head coach. And it's easy to look at it and say, this should be a 9 or 10 win team. This is a group in Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles that's in their 3rd year of building. They've created a ready-made situation for their young quarterback. I think it's fair to have expectations with them. And I don't really see the pothole in week 1 the way that you do. That Tennessee team is still rebuilding in a lot of spots and digging out from underneath some of their older stars having aged out over the last few years. Taylor Lewan, Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry, those guys obviously not there anymore. I think one thing that's interesting about Tennessee is that they really have invested in trying to get an answer on Will Levis. They add Calvin Ridley. They bring in Lloyd Cushenberry to be the pivot man on their offensive line. They bring in Tony Pollard. They want answers on Will Levis, which might give you the idea that they're closer than they are. But if you look at the rest of the roster, I think they have a ways to go.
Okay, that Jets San Francisco game, we call it the Baggage Bowl. They've got all this, all these holdouts. Yeah. I don't know. I know San Francisco is going to be fine. I trust the coach. Yep. I trust the defense. I'm fine. They'll be fine. Weaker conference. I don't know what to do with the Jets. I don't trust the leadership in the building. There are stories out there they wanted to hire an offensive coordinator to help their offensive coordinator. Where are you feeling? You're connected here. What are we to make of the Jets? I don't have a strong opinion. I have Miami and Buffalo getting to the playoffs in that division, not the Jets. Where are you on them this morning?
Do you have Brady on every week now, right?
I'll have him on regularly. Yeah, regularly.
Okay. I would just be interested to hear how he would compare what the Jets are giving Aaron Rodgers right now with what he had when he got to Tampa Bay in 2020.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of similarities. Like, I think if you look at the infrastructure of the team, the amount of veteran players that they have on the team that really know what they're doing, I think there are similarities. And look, like where they are along the lines of scrimmage is a much different place than where they were a year ago. The defensive line was great last year, and they have 7 former first-round picks on the defensive line. Then go to the offensive line and how aggressively they addressed the problem from last year. They bring in Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, 2 guys who have a ton of experience, high-level left tackle, high-level right tackle. You might say, okay, they're both 33 years old. Could that be problematic from an injury standpoint? Absolutely could be. The third tackle, the swing tackle, is the 11th pick in the draft in Olu Fashanu. Then you look at the skill position, right? Like you look at Garrett Wilson at receiver and Breece Hall at tailback. I'm looking across the roster, Colin, and the 2 biggest problems last year were the offensive tackle position and quarterback. Those 2 positions, if they can stay healthy, have been emphatically fixed. So I don't know if they're going to be able to get past Kansas City and Baltimore and Cincinnati and the strength of the AFC. But I have a hard time seeing where they shouldn't be the favorite in the AFC based on where Buffalo has sort of shifted some of their roster and gotten younger in a lot of key spots, based on where Miami is defensively and having moved some guys like Christian Wilkins and Jerome Baker and Xavier Howard now off the roster. I have a hard time looking at it and saying, if they stay healthy, why wouldn't the Jets be the favorite? I think they should be.
Kansas City, Baltimore tonight. Kansas City slight favorite. They're all distractions aren't the same. I look at Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift. It's not a distraction. It is what it's fun. I look at Rashee Rice, silly mistake by a young guy. It happens. The organization immediately supported him. Harrison Butker, that's not a controversy. The players don't. I mean, they're going to support their guy, and many of them probably agree with him. I don't look at Kansas City as having a turbulent offseason. I think when you're a champion, and the Patriots knew this, I mean, the Patriots had Deflategate, Spygate, Aaron Hernandez. When you have good leadership, that stuff just melts away. I think it's almost, Albert, it's almost one of those things. The downside to a dynasty, the upside, you have great leadership to handle turbulence. The downside is you're going to have more turbulence, got more stars on your team. I think Kansas City should be the favorite to win it all. I think their receiving core is better. Where are you on them and their offseason?
I agree. I mean, I think, like what you're talking about is your ability to absorb risk, right? Like, and look over the years at all the risks the Patriots took, in drafting Aaron Hernandez. There was the year that they acquired both Chad Ochocinco and Albert Haynesworth within weeks of each other. They brought in Corey Dillon early in the dynasty when it looked like he was a total malcontent in Cincinnati. They were able to absorb risk over the years because of what you're talking about, which is the leadership in the building. And Kansas City's been able to do that too. I mean, don't forget, even before Mahomes got there, they were able to absorb the risk of drafting Tyreek Hill, and they really made that work, right? So a lot of that was already in place before Mahomes got there. It's only been strengthened since Mahomes has been there. Guys know that, you come in there, you're chasing a ring, you have to play by the Chiefs' rules, and they're going to be able to take more risk than other teams because they've got the leadership to handle it. So I think you're right on with that. I don't think any of the stuff from the offseason is going to affect much competitively for the team. And then I think the offense has a chance to be a lot better than it was last year.
Same.
And I think the reason why they're reintroducing the deep ball into the passing game. A couple of years ago, they offload Tyreek Hill, and they really invested in the run after catch guys because so many teams were playing them with 2 high safeties. They've sort of rolled that back this year. Now, you're not going to be able to see it tonight because Hollywood Brown's out because Xavier Worthy is a rookie playing his first game. But I think when you get to week 8, week 10, week 12, you're going to start to see the vision for the offense and what they see the offense being when they get to the playoffs, which is sort of similar. I'm going to make the Patriot analogy again to when the Patriots had Randy Moss going deep and Wes Welker running underneath. You're going to have Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy on the outside, taking the top off the defense, and then Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce running underneath that, which I think is going to bring out the best in Patrick Mahomes. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you still have a bunch of ascending young stars. They got to replace L'Jarius Sneed, but you talk about guys who should keep getting better. George Karlaftis, Trent McDuffie, Nick Bolton. I think the Chiefs have to be the favorite going into the season. Doesn't mean I pick them to win the Super Bowl, but I think they have to be the prohibitive favorite going into 2024.
Okay, finally, I know I'm catching you off guard. I'm taking Washington. Every year we have a team. Last year it was Houston.
Yeah.
They get the quarterback and the coach right. I'm going to go with Washington to sneak in. Now, they're probably a one and done, but I think they got the quarterback and the coach right and the coordinator and the owner and the GM.
Yep.
Washington's going to be my, Washington won 10 games team. Now, that sounds ridiculous, but it's no more ridiculous than saying that about Houston, which was a disaster 2 years ago. Do you have a team that we're going to go, Breer saw something we did not?
Can I give you one in each conference?
Sure.
And one's a little more under the radar than the other one. In the AFC, I'd give you Indianapolis. They were 9-8 last year with Gardner Minshew as their quarterback. They looked dynamic when Anthony Richardson was in there. I think Laiatu Latu is going to be the defensive rookie of the year, coming from UCLA. If he can stay healthy, he's dynamic as a pass rusher. Now, a lot of this is going to be based on health, right? Like, can they keep Anthony Richardson healthy? How do you balance wanting to use him as a runner versus, like the injury risk that you're going to take on when you do that? All that needs to be worked out. But I think there's plenty of high-end potential there. Remember, Jalen Hurts took a step back when Shane Steichen left Philadelphia. I think you saw a lot of the reason for that and how the Colts played on offense last year, even after Anthony Richardson wound up getting hurt. I think there's good high-end potential on both sides of the ball there. I like the Colts really challenging the Texans in the AFC South. And then in the NFC, I'll go further under the radar. Keep an eye on the Cardinals. I think after that whole video game thing with Kyler Murray, the light went on for him. He's a kid who won in college, won in high school. He hadn't been through losing like he went through in the pros. I think finally the light came on for him a couple off seasons ago when he was coming back from the ACL. He played pretty well last year. In the first year in a new offense, it's the first time he's been in a new offense since high school. He run air raid offenses all the way from high school to college to the pros. He had to learn a new offense for the first time. And without being on the field for OTAs, mini camp, training camp, any of that, he wound up playing pretty well. And if you want to look at their two draft classes, the last two draft classes there, they're big in volume and they're big in high-end talent. They got Paris Johnson at left tackle. They have Marvin Harrison at receiver. And then you look down the line, Michael Wilson at receiver. They think he can be another Adam Thielen. Max Melton at corner. I just look at the depth now in Arizona and the job that coaching staff did last year. It's going to be tough in the NFC West with the two behemoths there at the top of the division. But I think Arizona could be a team that we're talking about has maybe 8 or 9 wins going into January, and maybe they're trying to sneak in with the 7th seed in the NFC.
Albert Breer, as always, my friend. Great seeing you.
All right. Thanks, Colin.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.